Evening, everybody, and welcome back to another Sunday night live Podding Shed chat. How are we all doing on this lovely bank holiday weekend? An extra day off work for many of us. I know not all of us, and some of us already have a day off. So the idea of this week's chat is about what are you going to do with an extra day gardening? So, oh, excuse me, I can leave that a little bit open for those that don't have a day off or are just always having a day off, shall we say. First of all, let's see if anybody is out there. And are we actually going live on YouTube this week? And we don't know what happened last week. Bit of a weird one. It says here that I am live on YouTube. So hopefully everything is working. Ballycillian is out there. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Adrian is out there. Good evening to you. Philly SPB is out there. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream is out there. Good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. What else have we got? Jenny Hunnett is out there. Hello, everyone. Hope you are well and had a great week. Indeed, I hope you've had a great week too. Anna Jones is out there. Hello, gardeners. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is out there. Evening all. Hope everyone is enjoying the long weekend. Good evening to you. My dad's out there. Good evening to you. Richard Golden has joined. Good evening to you. Digwell says, bloody hell, it's working. So it's telling me it must be out on YouTube. Excellent. Something has kicked in correctly. Kate Spratt is out there. Good evening to you. And I think that is everyone that I can see so far. Please do keep remember to add your comments as we go on. Turbo Stream says it's live, so the 50p and the meter trick must be working. Indeed, it must. Grow Veg is out there. Good evening to you. Says hello to everyone. Yeah, so as far as I can tell, it is working out there. So excellent stuff. A good start to the day. I've got to admit, I'm a little bit lacking energy this evening. We've been up since 5:30. We went and done a car boot this morning, and it's taking it out on me. I don't like early mornings and certainly not outside in the sun. I don't know whose idea it was, but I did get a chance to sell off some of my old tools to some people who perhaps need them a bit more than what I do. I've decided I'm going through a bit of a clear out lately. I've decided I don't need to keep so much stuff. I've always had to try and keep more spades and more forks than what I actually need. At the most, I need 2. So got rid of them, pleased to say. So what are you going to be doing with your extra day? Now, I'm very lucky this week. I have got tomorrow off work, and we've been pretty busy this week with the garden and the allotment anyway, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But tomorrow, just an extra day that I can spend either on the garden or the allotments. What am I going to do? I'm at a bit of a crossroads at the moment, I feel. I'm finding that we've got lots of things being harvested. We've harvested sweet corn, we've got onions coming in, and just to name a few. But in terms of actual jobs, I'm finding there's not much I can do just yet, but I am preparing for the winter months. And you'll hear more about that on tomorrow's podcast. So yeah, I'm thinking a lot about that. Muddy Boots has joined. Good evening to you. Glad to see you are out there, buddy, and feeling much better. Again, sorry about last week. I don't know what happened, but we'll keep a close eye on it for the future. Jenny says, I will be potting up some veg plants and some perennial flowers I've sown for companion planting next year. Pruning the tomatoes to ripen the green ones, harvest what's ready, and watering. So that's what she's going to be doing with an extra day. Ballycillian says, apart from Sundays, the only day I get off work is Christmas Day. So that's one person who doesn't quite get the bank holiday off. But what if you did have an extra day off for the garden? What would you be doing? That's a question I'm throwing out there to make this a bit more relevant. So yes, I'm finding at the moment we're just in this sort of not much to do. I'm preparing for the winter, and empty beds are coming up. I'm trying to sow those or plant those up with other things, but I'm also trying to make sure that we're ready for the winter and thinking about what I want to do throughout the winter months. I always believe winter is a good time to get those infrastructure jobs done when there's less to do and the garden just feels a bit more less productive. Like I can build beds, I can dig trees up, etc., etc. So I'm doing a lot of planning for that at the moment. Beatrice has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. And Digwell is saying every day is a bank holiday for me. Whoop whoop. LOL. Yes, very lucky for you. But let's say you had just an entire day, extra day. What would you be doing in the garden with that entire extra day? Kate Spratt is saying, I'm going to do some seed harvesting ready for next season. Good idea. It was an article I was told about in the Kitchen Garden magazine about drying beans as well. That's meant to be quite good if you are looking to dry beans and save some of those to sow next year. Turbo Stream says, I've been on the plot a lot lately, so if the weather is good, I might go for a bike ride. Fair enough. You know, you've got to make time for everything else in your life as well. Jenny says, also started my compost in compost bags. Big but movable, manageable, and hopefully works well. I don't work, but it's a day off being a mum, taxi, etc., etc. So yes. And Beatrice says, me too, Digwell. My main task this week is prepping beans and stuff the freezer and process my mountain of tomatoes. Fantastic. A lot of tomatoes are coming in at last, especially our outdoor tomatoes. I finally feel like we're getting somewhere with those. And we got, well, tomorrow I'm making gumbo for our tea, which is a South American dish, I believe, and it uses a lot of tomatoes in that we're going to be using that up in. Absolutely delicious meal. Okra as well, which I've yet to be able to grow. In fact, that's something I'm going to make a real tough effort to try and grow next year is okra. I've got to remind myself how to do that. Turbo Stream says, I'm clearing some of my plot and sowing green manure at the moment, along with a few more shed repairs. What green manure are you going to be sowing? And I ask that because I've been sowing lots more green manures. We've sown field beans and they've started to show themselves. We've sown Phacelia and pretty soon I'm going to be sowing clover as well as another green manure. And they're going to be going underneath some of my fruit trees and bushes on hope it's just going to help tackle some of those weeds. Buddy Celine says, I think I would sit at the allotment planning what I would grow next year and exactly where it would grow. There we go. This is what the question I want to know. Yeah, that's a good plan. Just sit there, notepad and paper, work out what did well, what did poorly, what you want to grow where. I think that's all a good idea. Oracle says, be a normal day for me. I will be getting bossed around by Mallard. That's what wife's jobs, isn't it? It is the wife's job. Money Boots, a day to take stock of a season so far. Note successes and failures. Look for ways to improve on failures. Exactly right. Exactly right there. This is certainly at this time of year. I always feel September is the beginning of the garden year, and it is a great chance to sit down and make a note of what has done well, what has done poorly, what has surprised you, what has been really effective, what you've done differently this year that's worked or hasn't worked, and think about that for next year. Jenny says, Buddy Celine, that sounds like a perfect day. And Kerry says, I'm going to use some tomatoes to make soup. Never made it. Wish me luck. Good luck, Kerry. Absolutely delicious. Really easy to make as well. Fantastic. And thank you very much for joining in tonight. Turbo Stream, I was given some lettuce seedlings this morning, so they got planted, and I cleared the bottom leaves of my Swedes and weeded that bed. Fantastic. I always think it's important to remove some of those yellowing leaves on the brassicas particularly, or any plant for that matter. They do so much better without them, and they don't harbour as many pests and diseases. Idaho says, hello, sorry I'm late. Woke up at 3 a.m. and couldn't fall back to sleep until 7. Hope you're okay. Lovely to see you, Idaho. And Turbo Stream says the green manure is a Facilia. I have field beans to sow too, hopefully this week sometime. Fantastic, fantastic. So, yeah, a lot of people are saying that their idea is sort of thinking about what they, the failures, successes, as Muddy Boots said, planning for this next year. And I think that is actually really important. I'm finding myself a lot at the moment planning what I want to do throughout the winter months. As I said, you'll hear it more on the podcast tomorrow. But basically, there's going to be a new greenhouse on the allotment to give me 2 greenhouses, new beds being built on the allotment and at home, new compost bins going to be built. Basically, there's a lot of work that is going to be happening throughout this winter period, as I like to call it, infrastructure work, but particularly if I can get hold of the wood that is. Down on the allotment, we use reclaimed wood because it doesn't really matter so much on the allotment. But at home, I have to buy decent wood. I found the C16 works really well because it's nice and thick. But I priced it up. At the moment, the price of wood would cost £90 for each bed, and I want to build 3 of them. So a little bit debating what to do on that. Adrian could not get to sleep till 5 a.m. I was just getting up just after 5 this morning, believe it or not. And Hargrave Gas, I have lots of tidying to do in the garden too. Plus, I need to get in some winter salads before it's too late. Indeed, winter salads are the big thing at the moment. Don't forget spinach as well. That does really well at this time of year. And the oriental salads, the pak choi, wong bok, just to name a few. Mizuna as well. That does really well at this time of year too. So yes, extra day off tomorrow. What are we going to be doing? It's a tough one to really decide what I'm going to be doing. Kerry says, I've got my very overgrown allotment a few weeks ago. Half of it is cleared, so I've got a lot of work to do. Digging over half of it to make it usable, paths, etc., etc., etc. Fantastic. And I've got to say, I feel this is probably the best time to take on an allotment because it gives you the chance to really start clearing it and rather than trying to rush and get everything planted. My advice here, and I don't know if anybody else would back me up on this, is just to enjoy or spend your first bit of time. Where's the overlay? First bit of time with your new allotment, just getting ready and clearing out the weeds, because that's one thing I wish I had done more with my allotment, is clear out the weeds before I planted anything. Turbo Stream says, I dug up my soft fruit cartons to give to my cousin. She is driving back to Southampton this week, so we are meeting up for a coffee near the M42. Hopefully, they will survive. I'm sure they will be fine. Just make sure they get looked after really well. It's coming to that time of year where bare-rooted fruit trees are going to be available pretty soon. In fact, I've got to have a look in the magazines and see if they are available now. Won't be long at all. Idaho says, I've gotten too ambitious this year, trying to catch up after 3 years of recovery of injury. I think I'm still recovering, clearing out 3 years of weed in some areas. I'm just trying to keep my head up. You know, I've had a conversation with somebody else this year, particularly who's had an injury, and I've said, you know, do what you can, but don't push yourself. Look after yourself is the most important thing. Jenny says, Facilia laudata flower is amazing for bees, but trying to avoid a lot of annuals for companion planting next year, as I don't want to water them. I think perennials will cope better. I do agree. Perennials will cope better if they are established. It's getting them established that is the hard thing. Especially this year with it being so dry. It's really warm in here today. Because this year's been so dry, it's been hard to get anything to really establish and take hold. But always next year is what I say. Idaho says, I've been sowing lettuce, turnips, rutabagas, or Swede as we like to call them, and a few brassicas. Excellent stuff. Margaret says, we've had a good success with our carrots and beans this year, so we're going to be planting further veg beds within the garden. All our harvest is now in the freezer. We've been bitten by your bug, Richard, or Richard, however that's spelled there. Well, that's good to know, Margaret. Very good to know, and I'm really pleased with how your garden is coming. I just think you need to lose a bit more grass and have a bit more bigger veg areas. Thank you for the great ideas. So in bok choy, mizuna, etc., etc. No problem. Well worth doing. Jenny says Marshalls have bare root stock in. There we go. So if you are, I think we spoke about this on a podcast recently. Bare rooted fruit stocks are so much cheaper than ordinary that they're only available for a short period of the year, and it's coming up to that sort of time. Turbot Stream says, I will go to the plot tomorrow at some point. I'm quite pleased with my progress this year. Most of my jobs are harvesting and pulling up millions of calendulas. They do sell seed everywhere, don't they, calendulas or marigolds? But they are such a good plant to self-seed. Great for pollinators, great for repelling in pests as well. One thing that I've found has really done well self-seeding is our mustard. What's it called? Commissatra, it's called. I grew 2 plants last year in Leyland flower, and they have flown up and popped up all over the place. That we haven't actually had to sow them, but we've been harvesting them, and they've gone down really well. Idaho also says, my plum trees have fruit now. I've been picking a few here and there, but they are coming fast now, so we will have to can some, make some jam and something else. Blackberries are getting ripe also. We harvested our apples yesterday, or some of our apples, our first lot of apples. Delicious, I've got to say, absolutely delicious apples. Put them into a bucket to take them home. The windfalls are going to the chickens, and some that are no good have gone to the compost bin. But I'm just looking forward to the fact that we got plenty of apples, apple pie, apple cake, lots of things we're going to be making with those. So yeah, so my plan tomorrow, going to go down the allotment quite early in the morning as I've got the day off, and just do a bit of watering, bit of weeding, nothing too serious. Measure out where I feel I can fit everything in that I want to build over the next few months, and then work out what materials I'm going to need to buy to get that all done. Again, I've discussed this on the podcast tomorrow as my plans. After that, I will then come home, and if everything goes to plan, it'll probably be about 9 o'clock so I can get some breakfast. And then I've got a day in my garden at home. My garden at home is in need of a major tidy up over the months where, and I've spoken about this many times on the podcast, where I tend to throw all our weeds and cuttings on the lawn and then run over it with a lawnmower. Our lawn is looking pretty messy, to say the least, because we've had so much material this year that all we've got is little bits of wood chips and stuff everywhere. So I've got to put the lawnmower on a really low setting, run over it, and I think that will just tidy it up quite nicely. Turbo Stream says, I also sowed some senshi onions, which I've got right there, funny enough. I'm going to get that in light. I was thinking about sowing them, but I decided not to. Left on the sharing bench. They are overwintering onions. Hopefully they will do better than the spring sown ones. So good point there. Now I find my overwintering onions, particularly this year, have done better than my spring sown ones, purely because of how dry it has been this year. But the overwintering ones don't store as well. So I like to harvest my overwintering onions, chop them up and pop them in the freezer, but my spring sown ones can sit in storage quite nicely. And the next year we're going to try and get a better crop of onions. Idaho says, that sounds interesting, Turbo Stream. I have a packet of perennial onion seeds I need to sow. My perennial onions got killed when somebody dumped a load of weeds on my allotment right over that bed and killed them off. I wasn't happy. Ian McGorgan has joined. Or is it? Am I pronouncing that right? McCragan? One of the two. Hello to you. Lovely to see you. Turbo Stream, I ordered some more grow lights for growing over winter. Excuse me. They were quite cheap at this time of year. 8 strips for 36 quid. So I might build one of the mini greenhouse stages tomorrow too. Where did you get those grow lights from, and are they LED ones? Please let me know the website for that. That's £36 for 6 or 8, however many it was. That sounds pretty cheap. Although I mentioned grow lights in this week's podcast, and somebody has come back and sort of said they're not looking to use grow lights this year because of the price of electricity, quite rightly. Do we really need grow lights? That's a conversation we're going to have one week. I talked about this quite often on the podcast. Do we really need grow lights? They're just a nice thing to have as well. But yeah, grow light. But yeah, sowing seeds going to be something I'm looking at doing as well tomorrow. Actually, I've got a load of seeds from the supporters club. I buy a load of seeds in bulk, and seeds that don't get sent out I tend to sow towards the end of a month. So I will be sowing all those up ready to plant out and keep our crops going. Also I've at the car boot today, I actually bought some pansy and viola plug plants. They were 10p each. I asked for 10 of them and he ended up giving me 20. So for £4, I was quite happy with that. And I'm just going to be potting those up and getting those ready for our winter plants. Bit of colour throughout the winter always goes down well, I feel. Anna Jones says, not much to do with my veg patch except picking. So tomorrow I'm going to plant some perennials I've grown from seed: catmint, purple cornflower, red hot pokers, and globe thistles. I do like red hot pokers. There's one plant I do have here, and it grows so well out in our local area as well. I used to love them in my parents' house when I grew them as like a cottage border. And I had to have them here, although probably got to give them a bit of TLC at some point. But red hot pokers are beautiful. Jenny says, I've never used grow lights or a heated propagator, old school. Interesting point there, actually, because I've often wondered. I'm a big fan of using heated propagators. I find that I get much better results. And grow lights as well. But I've often wondered if we take, particularly during the wartime when these things just didn't exist, how did we survive, or would we survived? In fact, Muddy Boots is asking a similar question. I wonder if hiking energy prices will stop a lot of people from using grow lights and propagators. I think this is a question we're going to have to ask. And I think it's a very valid question. I think we'll have to... I don't know if we can do polls on YouTube, but I know on Facebook we can do polls and ask that very same question and see what people's reaction was. Yeah, let's do that. So let's say this is the end of August now. I'll put this question up, and if anybody else has a YouTube channel, Instagram, or anything like that, can ask the same question. Are you going to be using your grow lights and propagators with the rise in energy costs this year? Get a good idea. They were from Amazon, and the multi-spectrum ones, like my other ones, 8 LED strips. I use them on the timer to grow salads and bring on my seedlings. So that was the grow lights that Turbo Stream said he got at quite a good price. Send us a link if you could, Turbo. That'd be great to see which ones you've got. Could anyone recommend a delicious raspberry, please? Yes, absolutely. Autumn Bliss, one of my favorites. They are an autumn one, so they're easier, in my opinion, to look after because you only have to cut them down once a year, and you cut them all down. Yeah, and they don't need tying in because they stand up on their own. Autumn Bliss is what I would recommend. Pop into, you might have missed them now, but pop into somewhere like Wilkinson's. They sometimes sell them in there quite cheap. If not, other garden centres or places like that might be selling them as well. The range is a good one too. Anybody else got a recommendation for good or raspberry as well? I can see the benefit for southern growers using grow lights, but this far up north, we end up with plants and too early to plant them. It's a good point. It's a very good point when it comes to grow lights. So I use them because I just like that strong growth, but I only use it to supplement daylight sort of thing to try and extend the hours. But yeah, you can end up with them being too early. Ian says, I'm working tomorrow just pruning a climber all over the front of a house and then weeding and tidying a garden in the afternoon. But Ian, and this is going to be a bit of an old question for you, hard one, because Ian being a gardener, my question is, for those that don't have a day off tomorrow, if you do have a day off to spend in the garden, what would you be doing? Well, Ian's doing that anyway as a job. So yeah. TurboStream, my house faces north, so not much grows in propagators, and at the front the sun is too strong and they all dry out. Not got a greenhouse. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got to admit, I do love having a greenhouse. It's one of the best investments I ever made. And the fact that I will soon have 3 greenhouses just goes to show how much value I put in them. But I do have the room to do it. I mean, I've got 1 greenhouse at home, 2 on one half of the allotment. I'm very, very lucky in that I do have the space. Anna says, when we still had the old light bulbs, I used to get good results putting seedlings under an ordinary lamp. Yeah, the heat of those can be quite amazing. I know somebody who used to use a light bulb to keep the rabbits warm during the winter as well, funny enough. Muddy Boots says, a good time to increase our compost making facilities now that peat-based compost will end for us in 2024. That's been a given thing. I got to admit, I switched off peat a couple of years ago and only use peat-free compost. And I got to admit, the results can be very, very mixed. Trying to find a decent peat-free compost is proven a little bit difficult. I've got a delivery expected this week of some compressed compost I'm hoping to try out. But yeah, the quality can be very, very varied. But I do find B&Q's own peat-free, I think they call it the Verve, to be actually really good. Really good. And they sell it in the big 120-litre bag. So I like that as well. Excuse me. We prefer the golden raspberries after growing them this year. They taste more raspberry, if that makes sense, and the birds leave them alone. Yes. I'm trying to think what their golden ones are called. I've got them growing out just out there, so I should know. But yes, they are really nice, I've got to say. Brian's Garden and Polytunnel has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Says hi, Richard, and hi, Nigel. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. I've said that already, I know. Idaho says, I started using lights in 2012 to start spring seeds. Started using heating pads in 2016. Before that, I started all seeds in a south-facing window. I could go back, but I doubt I will this year. Yeah, I mean, if you've got a south-facing window that gets plenty of light and heat, then I don't see the point in having grow lights. My windows faced east and west, so they either get light in the morning or light at night. So that's part of the reason that I moved on to grow lights. I did have them in my little, you remember my old shed made out of corrugated metal and plastic and etc. I took down when we were in lockdown. I used to have the grow lights set up in there. Worked really well, gotta say, but it did illuminate the whole street, and one of my neighbours wanted it while I was growing in there, as you can imagine. Excuse me. Jenny says, I have my first garden polytunnel this year, but not till May. I popped a 6-foot camping table under the living room window. Enough light, but not too direct. But I will be sowing more direct next year. Sowing direct. Yeah, even I've started sowing direct, actually. weirdly. I've always avoided it except for carrots and parsnips. But as we're going into these winter months, I'm starting to sow things like broad beans and peas directly into the soil. Breaking a habit of a lifetime there. I just feel so much work trying to transplant seedlings now that certain things I'm trying to do more direct. Ian says I don't use grow lights, but if you want to get some free light, then I have a all powers power station 200 and a solar panel £150. It charges in day and uses it to charge by battery power tools. So talking about like a portable power pack charged up by the solar panel. Good stuff. Good stuff. Gary Filler has joined. Hi all. Sorry I'm late. No problem. Lovely to see you. Brian says, don't buy cheap peat-free compost, false economy. That's something I certainly found, actually. Yes. I bought last year, it was from a cheap supermarket, cheap German supermarket, some compost in a bit of a rush, and nothing grew in it. Absolutely nothing grew in it. And this was when I was testing other peat-free composts, and it worked really. I've got to say, I think there is something for peat-free compost. If we're making our own compost, we're effectively making peat-free compost anyway, and we all sing its praises. But the stuff we buy does seem very, very varied, very varied. Ian says, when I get home, I will pick my runner beans and freeze them. Fantastic. Nicola Cornish Heaven has joined. Hello, lovely. Sorry I'm late. I lost track of time. It's this bank holiday weekend, isn't it? It's just making us all forget what day it is. It feels like it's a Saturday, in my opinion. Pallicillion says, I sow in a small unheated propagator placed in a large unheated propagator inside the polytunnel. Seems to work great. Sort of triple glazed. Well, that's an idea of something we could do, isn't it? Several propagators or triple glazing. I've seen people use like the staging greenhouses or grow towers inside greenhouses as well. Again, something we can all think about. For my situation, grow lights are much cheaper than the greenhouse and work fine, except they are not for everyone indeed. Talking of peas, my snow peas are like triffids from Jenny. Snow peas, they went out 2 months ago, didn't they? These are peas that I sent out as members of my supporters club, and they, Jenny's are saying that they have grown absolutely huge, fantastic. Love to hear that. Good evening, Richard and viewers from Ernie. Lovely to see you. Listening / watching from the gardening, oiling the garden furniture. Are you sad it may be the last weekend of summer? Honestly, no, I'm not. I'm not sad it's the last weekend of summer at all. I feel this summer, because it's been so dry, has brought up quite a few problems. So I'm kind of glad to be getting into the cooler months. I'm not a summer lover. I get busy at work as well in summer. So heading into these autumn months, just gonna a bit cooler, bit more rainwater available, and fill up my water butts nicely. No, I'm not sad at the end of summer. No, I'll be sad when it comes into winter, if anything. But autumn, I always feel, is such a good season too. Idaho says greenhouse is still on my wish list, and Brian's Garden Polytunnel. The problem with cheap peat-free compost is that it's made from wood pulp and is not fully rotted down. Yeah, that's definitely something I did find. Not very well rotted down, bits of rubbish in it sometimes. I am, like I say, I am in conversations with a Koya compost brand. I know some people are very against Koya, but I see it as something to look at as peat is being banned. I'm also in conversations with a maize compost supplier as well, who make their compost from maize. Excuse me. Some people probably already know who I'm talking about. It's an interesting one, isn't it? This compost debate. Do you also full of weed seeds? This compost that isn't well watered down. Yeah, that's definitely something I've discovered. But who feels that banning peat is a good thing? I know this isn't quite what a subject is meant to be tonight. I want to find out what you're doing with this extra day off work. But we seem to be talking about peat as this ban has came in. I've had two emails this week that were covered by an embargo. I think, yeah, the embargo is lifted on those, so I can talk about those in just a minute. And the reason I thought about talking about this peat-free compost is one of them was an email I got from Safe Soil Association. Apparently, Monty Don on Radio 4 was doing a plea in terms of a Safe Soil Association. They're a company I've interviewed on the podcast a couple of years ago now, and they've phone line is on, so I just seen somebody say the phone isn't working. Yeah, this company tests soil, and they've done a play with Monty Don today, apparently, about it. So that was one I was covered by an embargo that's now lifted, and the other one was from Wildlife UK, I think it was. And they've sent me this email about. Oh, we've got a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello.
Hello, Richard.
Oh, you are there. You are there. Hello.
I've got you. Yeah, not so bad.
Excellent. How you doing?
I do like Market Facebook Place. I think I've got those words muddled up. I've not had my dinner yet. But I had a really good week. There was a gentleman advertising some composite decking, new boards. He's a fencer and decker by trade, moving house, giving up his storage bin. Anyway, that went to somebody else. But he said, I've got some real wood decking. So it's like the 18mm thick stuff, brand new boards. Okay, I had to cut them shorter to get them in the van. Well, he cut them for me. But not only did I get that, I did get some odd bits of composite, some tanalized sort of 2x2 and 2x4. And he's also delivering 2 sheds to me next week. So I'm getting okay, it's a little bit tired and the top half of the shed needs replacing because the bottom's been done. A 6x4 and then a slightly smaller one, which I'm going to use to house my ducks. So just reminding everybody.
Marketplace.
Marketplace.
Yeah, no, that's been a fantastic. I'm quite often looking in Marketplace these days to see what is being given away, especially greenhouse glass at the moment, because I want to keep hold of greenhouse glass where I can.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of it advertised. Obviously, I'm quite a way down from you, but I regularly see free glass on the Marketplace down here. I don't think as many people have greenhouses down in the southwest because I think it's windier. I could be wrong, but I think a lot of people have gone over to polytunnels.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan of polytunnels, my experience, but we'll just see what happens on that. So, yes. I'm guessing with all this wood that you've collected from Marketplace, and tomorrow being a bank holiday, you're going to be busy putting all this together.
You'd think I would be, but I've actually got other plans for the next few days. I've got friends coming over on Tuesday and Thursday, so it's a bit of tidying up because living on your own and obviously having the amount of land I have, there's days where things in the house sort of slip a bit because I think I'll have another 10 minutes in the garden or,
Yeah.
But so yes, it's a bit of let's get the house tidier so I don't feel quite so embarrassed when most people are all right. But yes, and the other news is we've now got 6 baby chicks. We've lost a few and had some that have partly developed and then stopped developing. I don't know if they got cold or whatever, but we've got 6 out of a possible 10 that we would have hatched and all survived. We had 1 die, but yes, so we've had 3 that were stillborns as such.
Yeah.
But 6 lovely chicks running around.
Fantastic. You did share a video of that in our Facebook group, didn't you, of your little chickens, and it was lovely to see them, I've got to say.
Yeah, Richard, I'm going to tootle off now because you sounded like a Dalek then, and I think it's more my reception than yours because obviously being in the country, everything's rubbish.
Oh, fair enough.
Apart from living here. So I'll carry on watching you on the big screen tonight.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for calling in.
I'll say.
Oh, has she gone? I can't hear her. I think she's gone. Yep, she's gone. Sorry about that. So Brian says it's just another day for him tomorrow. He's retired. But let's say you were just magically given an extra day. Just what would you be doing in your garden in that extra day? Jenny says, absolutely ban peat. We never used to buy compost. It is just a habit we've fallen into. Go back to old school and help the planet. We, so, and Idaho is saying, what's the point of banning peat? Coca-Cola has to be shipped in from somewhere else. Well, Coca-Cola is just something that could be used in compost. The whole point of banning peat is that the peat bogs are being mined to a point that they're not recovering. Peat bogs can recover, but they recover at a rate of something like 1 millimeter a year, and we're farming it at such a rate that they're not recovering, and it's causing issues with environmental issues. So I can see why it's being banned. I feel this is another thing that the UK, I think it's, I don't know of any other country that's banned peat, but it's another thing where the UK is doing it first, like plastic straws, etc., or plastic bags, wasn't it? But I do feel that peat needs addressing. It is a good substance to use. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to take it away from that. But coir being shipped away from everywhere from other countries is also a very valid point. I had a conversation with this coir company, Compressed Coir, about that, and they actually did tell me that they ship it from India by boat, so it's not being flown. And because it's compressed, they can save a lot of fuel and stuff. I don't know the sums. I just had to take it at that word. But I do get the point. But I do feel making our own compost is something we should all be doing. And it's just out there. It's just out there. It's made from our waste material. We should be doing it. Jenny says peat has taken thousands of years to form and locks in carbon. Coir, which isn't amazing, has a smaller carbon footprint than you think, by the way. It is shipped in a waste product from the coconuts. It's a very, very valid point of both of those. It's not without its problems. It's just something we've got to think about. Question. Ballysillian is asking a question. When I started gardening, I had a seedbed of finely sieved soil. Worked great. So why do I need so much compost now? Good point. Yeah, I think it's because we've been conditioned into thinking that our gardens need compost. Or our pots, everything in pots has to grow in compost. That's where the issue is, I think. That is where the issue is. Personally, I mean, I produce a lot of compost, but I cannot produce enough compost. I don't have to buy in compost. So that's why I tend to buy it in. But I take your point. In the olden days, I guess, again, we never used to grow in pots. We probably do more of that than what we used to do. Adding, of course, compost to the soil helps. Yeah, you got me thinking there, Ballysillian. It's a good point. Then there used to be more peat in compost than the original John Innes recipe. Indeed, yeah, it's all been reduced over the years. I had success in sowing in a seedbed this year, so we'll repeat it again next year. Going to try and not buy commercial compost if I can, but we'll buy soil-based compost instead. I like the idea of your seedbed. I've got to say, I do like your idea of a seedbed, and perhaps that's something I should be building over the winter months as a way to grow more. I'm not sure. I prefer growing in pots to start them off. But yeah, I wish I could not buy in commercial compost, in all honesty, but I use so much of it, I just can't. Anna says, I've recently just been using sterilized garden soil in pots. It's a bit heavy, but works for me too. I think a lot of compost does use garden soil anyway and sterilize it, etc., etc. In fact, many like Monty Don, when you see him on the TV, he often mixes garden soil in with to his potting mix anyway. It's a well-known thing. Idaho says basically it's political, not going to participate in political garbage. Political, yes. Environmental as well. It's a very it's a very. I'm no scientist. I'm going to put it like that. I'm no scientist, so I have to take the scientists at their word. So I'm under the belief it's not good for the environment. Nicholas says, living here in the southwest, lots of free manure. Manure added to your compost heap, of course. How to make a lot of that. Nick also says, majority of peat is burnt in power stations. 5% is used in the gardens. Yeah. This is the trouble. Is that like hosepipe bans? Gardeners tend to save a lot of rainwater anyway, and are often leading the way. So when the hosepipe ban hits us, it's kind of punishing those that are already doing the best that we can. Use your veggie pod as a seed bed and help keep the slugs and snails away. Yeah, that's funny enough what I was thinking. My little veggie pod as a seed bed, even my large one actually, for that matter. Brian says garden soil is okay to use, but with the addition of river ways, is that waste sand if the soil is heavy? Yeah, bit of sand to lighten it. Definitely. I'm making my own compost, collecting loads of bovine poo to help my compost soil. I will only buy locally made compost using the waste stalks from maize. Old school is the way to go. Again, I do think there is a lot to be said for the way, like the World War II generation particularly, how they used to, garden centres didn't even exist then. A lot of their seeds they bought from catalogues. But buying compost was something just wasn't done, and they survived absolutely fine without the need for that. Turbo Stream says, just clear a patch of soil, dig it over and run it some soil through a sieve, tamp it down and make a few drills and sow your seeds. It's really that easy. I think that's easy in many soils, but our soil here, particularly, if I put anything on the ground, it does just get sucked into the soil because we've got such a weird clay soil. I'm slow at home. The organic matter is starting to build up and we're getting much better soil now. So we could probably do that a bit better. But anything I do add, like on the allotment, all the manure and compost I've added over years just been sucked into the ground. It takes a few years to really build that up. Jenny says, whiskey makers burn peat as well. Everyone needs to leave it alone. It's certainly something that I'm not comfortable with using anymore, I'll be honest. I feel it was a good product for gardening, but I don't feel comfortable using it anymore. Nicola says, too much rubbish, glass, plastic, etc. in peat-free compost at the moment. This is also a problem that we've noticed. Which reminds me, I was saying about this second email I got from Wildlife UK. So they've sent me this email, and I'm not allowed to reveal it until midnight last night, I think it was. And it was all about how they've been campaigning for years about the ban of peat and how they're absolutely delighted that it is happening in 18 months' time. I have not personally seen peat-based compost for sale for quite a while, so I'm not sure who's going to suffer from this more. Turbo Stream says, what did the old-time gardeners do before all these plastic modules? They probably used wooden trays with soil or something like that. They definitely did use wooden trays. But yeah, I'm always fascinated with the World War II generation and how they did things. How did they do it? Well, yeah, without plastic pots and compost, etc., etc. Ballycillian says the biggest loss of peat bogs over here was the draining off them for farming. And in Ireland, of course, yeah, when they drained off the bogs to try and turn it into farmlands, and that's where most of the peat bogs were lost. Completely true, completely true. Should we have a quick look at some of the photos that have come in this week? Been quite a nice collection, actually. Lots of activity going on in the group. So Kate has been attending to a homemade rhubarb vodka. Unfortunately, she's unable to get down the allotment as much as she would like due to health reasons. And today she was going to go, but didn't listen to her body. So instead, she attended to a homemade rhubarb. David Williams has harvested his first ever pear. He's absolutely delighted with this, but he is asking, does this mean his pears are ready? And this is in the Facebook group. If anybody would like to go and answer that question, please do. Stuart Jackson, who is unfortunately unable to be here tonight. His daughter is last night with his daughter before she heads back. Stuart Jackson has harvested a bowl of cherry tomatoes. It looks absolutely delicious. Another Kate has been sowing some cabbages that I sowed last Sunday in our Supporters Club podcast. These are Supporters Club seeds. For those that don't know, I run a Supporters Club to support the podcast and live show. Details on that at the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Lisa, now this has been an interesting discussion we've had in the group. She's had to pay something like £45 for a new key because somebody lost their key and they've all had to pay it. Or was it £75? Something like that. A ridiculous amount of money that she thought, and was asking everyone's opinion. I thought it was too much money myself. Ian Beddoes has harvested some wonky vegetables, as you can see by this carrot, but you know what? They still taste just as good. Beatrice, last week we were talking about growing asparagus from seed. Beatrice has been growing these asparagus from seed in her root trainers. And following on from last week's discussion, she went in and planted those out in her asparagus bed. Fantastic. It looks brilliant, doesn't it? I'd love to see just how well these get on over the next few months. Turbo Stream, he has been preparing this area for green manures, digging it over, clearing out the weeds. But what he was really surprised with is last year he added all this leaf mulch and it is all gone into the soil. Fantastic. Just goes to show what can happen. So please do keep sending those photos in. You can send them via email, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, or you can post them in our Facebook group or DM me on our social medias. Either way will work. What is everyone saying in the comments? Brian's Garden Polytunnel. We used to make our trays from wooden tomato boxes. Oh, there we go. So wooden, yeah, that makes sense. The trays were already built then, weren't they? So yeah, recycling. Terrorist room. The plot holder who gave me my Mila lettuce seedlings this morning sowed them in an old wash-nut bowl. They were better than my seedlings in modules. Yeah, interesting. Oh, excuse me. Turbo, I used to get the wooden trays tomatoes came in for free from corner shops. Wait, I don't ever remember. I remember tomatoes coming in cardboard boxes, but I don't ever remember them coming in wooden boxes. Shame. I'd love at a car boots today. I'm seeing a lot of these sort of wooden trays as well. One day I might make some. The old ways are the best, Bally. I'm sure of that. Certainly, I do agree with that. I've never got pears to ripen on the tree. I believe, if memory serves me right, you want to pick them just before they ripen. And leave them to ripen at home, if I remember correctly. My brain's not quite functioning fully today, so I can't always remember everything. Jenny says, I use my granddad's clay pots for sowing seeds. I'll post a photo later. The plots are now feeding their at least fourth generation. Excuse me, high five taken it out of me. In our family, absolutely love using them. Yeah, I'm a big fan of clay pots actually, but I'm looking at getting some new pots at home, clay, terracotta, etc., etc. glazed particularly because I want them to look nice out the front. Ian says, when I started as a nurseryman, I used to make our own compost with loam, grit, perlite, and fertilizer. Clempack used to make a fertilizer you could add to the compost. See, this is something I am thinking more and more about, making our own multi-purpose compost, what we would need to add to make it work, and how cheap can we get these items for to make enough. Great photos, lovely looking rhubarb vodka from Anna Jones. Indeed, they were lovely photos, weren't they? Please do keep posting your photos. Idaho, when I was there weren't plastic pots. When Mum bought seedlings from the nursery, she would tell the man how many she wanted, and he would use a knife to separate seedlings and a spatula to scoop it out. Oh, when I was little, sorry. When I was little, there wasn't plastic pots. Again, this is something I feel is quite a new, but I've got a huge collection of plastic pots anyway. Ballycillian says that's how I ripen them, by harvesting pears just a little bit early and leaving them to ripen in the pot. Turbo Slim says, I read a blog about bare root wallflowers today. They were supplied as bare roots and did better than the modern ones in modules. I have sown a row in my seed bed ready to transplant. Digwell says, Ian, that was my first job too before I joined the Royal Navy. Making a nurseryman. And Kate says, I've got several compost bins on the go. Is it a good idea to add some liquid fertilizer from time to time? I've never added liquid fertilizer to my compost bins, but I think what I would do if take out the compost and add some like slow release solid fertilizer to the compost when it's coming to the time to use it. In theory, the compost should have plenty of nutrients already in it, so makes it worthwhile. On that note, just want to remind everybody, if you are enjoying this show, please do give us a thumbs up. Please do give us a like. Please do give us a follow. Please do give us a subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification to know when we go live. Brian said hello to Steve, and Ian says you can use garden compost and leaf mold. Well done, Digwell. So this is what I'm thinking. I mean, I'm definitely going to be making more and more leaf mold this year. I don't know if anybody, I meant to say this last week actually. Leaves have started falling already, and quite a few leaves could turn brown, falling off the trees, suddenly turned very autumnal. And to me, it felt a little bit too early to actually see a layer of leaves. But then I think what it is because it's been so dry, a lot of trees have shed their leaves. But yeah, got to start making leaf mold soon. Jenny says, when I get a plot, it will happen one day, I hope. If I have room, I hope to grow plants solely for compost. Maize, borage, nettles, long grass, comfrey, etc. Then add my manures and brown waste. Indeed, yeah. Comfrey is such a fantastic plant. If you have an allotment, you've got to grow comfrey because it's good for compost. It's good for wildlife, but good for making fertilizer. Comfrey is that one plant that you have to have. Digwell has to go as his car's just been recovered from the M5, broke down at 12 noon. Sorry to hear that, buddy. You take care, and he'll see us all next week. Turbo Stream, I have a pile of leaves making leaf mold. I am intended to sieve some and see how seeds germinate. Yeah, definitely have got to make some leaf mold this year. Margaret says, in the old days, I remember everything being delivered by horse and cart and everyone rushing out in the street to gather the horse manure. That went straight on the garden. Stay was always looking for outlets for mucking out straws, some charged low. Yeah, this is the interesting thing I find with stables where they charge now for you to take away their waste, yet they have to pay for that waste to be taken away correctly. So I feel in some ways it's a bit cheeky for them to charge for it. But hey, us gardeners need it. I can understand if they deliver it. I can understand charging for it to be delivered. But I'm after a lot of. I need to get a lot of manure from somewhere at some point, but I just don't know where to get it from, and two, I don't want to ruin or pot it in the back of my vehicles anymore, and I need a trailer and a tow bar to do that, so I can just go to a stable and get a lot of manure. Now we're allowed to drive with trailers, aren't we? Our license includes that, I'm saying now. Idaho says, yes, I have plastic pots, but I prefer to sow my own seeds and take my own cuttings. When I buy plants, they always come in plastic. I use the plastic over and over until they are completely destroyed. Absolutely. That's why I've ended up with such a huge pile of plastic plant pots, because I just can't get rid of them when they are still decent. Although I end up with far too many plastic pots. Roxy seems to like them though. Brian says, everything is early this year. Crab apples in the street are falling from the trees. Good for making pectin stock, crab apples. If you're a jam maker, pectin stock is well worth doing. Nicholas says, my compost bays I started, photo in the Facebook group, lining with plastic recycled sheeting and some free installation to try and make hot bin bays. Yeah, hot bin bays. Yeah, another thing I want to try and do. Hot bin. When digging my bean trenches, I layer with my own compost that just hasn't fully composted. Yeah, good idea. I mean, I've got 2 beds set up this year that I've just been throwing in a load of waste, and I'm going to be using that for squash plants similar to bean trenches. Load of waste has just gone into there in hoping it's going to rot down over the winter. We're going to add a layer of compost on top and then plant our squash plants into lows. And that way, all that stuff, that goodness is going to be used up by the plants. Jenny says, you are right, Richard. Trees dropping earlier leaves due to the heat and saving energy for next year. It was on TV earlier. There we go. I spotted it first. Our IKEA blue bags work great for manure transportation. Yeah, I used to use them. I used to use dustbins as well, but it still makes a bit of a mess, and I'm a bit pull off from doing that. Turbistrom says, I've used some old plastic pots for my soft fruit cuttings that I've saved in this shed. Yeah, I mean, I've been using a lot of my old pots to pot up a lot of my fruit collection. I don't know if anybody else does this. If I buy a plant and it needs potting up, I don't like going from let's say a small one to a massive one. I like to take it up bit by bit by bit into a bigger and bigger pot, just because I feel those roots are still only going to be that big. And if they've got to go much further, they're going to struggle. If we just gradually encourage the roots to get a bit bigger, I think it does a lot better, in my opinion. I don't know if anybody else feels the same. I spoke about this on our YouTube, our video I put out. Was it this week or last week? One of the two. I think it was last week, where I was potting up some of our bargain plants. Yeah, a lot of, gotta admit, that's something I need to do tomorrow, actually. I need to go out and buy some compost. Garden centres aren't going to be open, so I need to go and buy some compost and pot up some of our. Here we are talking about it, aren't we? Talking about compost. And there I am saying, need to go and buy some compost to pot up some of our little fruit bushes. That's got a job for tomorrow. Just remembered that. What else have we got? Nicola says, I'm doing partly rotted wood chip, unrotted compost material, then mushroom compost, perlite. Concerned about arsenic in my garden soil, so try not to use. Yes, it's a very valid point, actually, not the arsenic in your soil. But yeah, I don't think it won't work. Idaho says, I wonder if there is a supply chain shortage for plastic pots. Maybe nurseries will start taking back empty pots and reuse them. Good point, actually. There seems to be supply chain issues in everything. I knew a garden centre used to have boxes out the front for people to leave their old what do you call them? Old plastic pots. And I saw it at Gardener's World as well. People, there was a stall there. People could take their plastic pots and get a cardboard pot. I thought that was a great idea. Jenny says, "Did you ID the squashes?" We're not 100% certain. I think the general consensus is that the one on the allotment is a courgette, like I thought, and the one at home, butternut squash. We think it's that. We're only going to know when it comes harvesting time. Brian says, always pot up in small increments, exactly like I do. It makes sense to me, doesn't it? I think, anyway, if they've got a long or go into a too big a pot, it's going to struggle. Kate says, alpaca nature, I think alpaca manure is fantastic and doesn't have the same smell, plus can be used without leaving to rot. I've had some from a local alpaca farm for free. I've used dry bits in pots plants because it won't smell even indoors. I don't know of any alpaca farms near us, but yeah, again, that would be great to be able to get hold of. Turbo Stream, I made the compost from plot soil mixed in with some of my own plot compost, so the plants, compost and pots were free. And he also says, on your video, Richard, test for bitterness before eating those squashes after what happened to me. I always do that, funny enough, as a course, because it can very easily happen. So if you get a bitter courgette, it's a sign it's full of a particular type of oxidant that can, in high doses, cause humans to be ill. It's always in courgettes, but normally in small doses. And that's what happened to Turbo Stream, I'm afraid to say. Cool has compost at half price as they need the space for something new. Co-op. There we go. Co-op has compost at half price at the moment. There we go. A lot of places, they're getting their Christmas stock in, so they want to get rid of that sort of stuff so they can get the Christmas stock in at the moment. I was so sad, says Nicola. 20 butternut squash plants and snail and slugs polished them off. I'm really impressed. If it is a butternut squash, the only reason I question it is the colour on the leaves. That sort of green leaf with the white veining it's slightly unusual, but it's so much bigger than any plant I've ever grown. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's just self-seeded. I think I must have given something to the chickens, and the seed was left in the soil. That is good to know about alpaca manure. No alpaca around here, but good info to file away. Yeah, if you can find an alpaca farm or start an alpaca farm, of course. Johnny Depp springs to mind whenever I talk about alpacas now. Yeah, most farm parks for kids' family to visit have alpacas. They are normally glad to hand it over, in my experience. Good point. Very good point there. And I can think of several kids' farms type thing that might do that. Barbara butternut squashes green striped. Oh, so, yes, I think I did see somebody, I think that was you, Jenny, Barbara butternut. Again, it's possible, but I don't ever remember buying anything with that name. And I'm pretty sure I would remember that name because it's so unusual. I could be wrong. Nicholas says, I wanted alpacas here, but it's quite expensive to buy them. LOL. Yeah, I've never looked into it. I'd love that sort of thing, but I never won't have room here. The chickens and the dog is enough, and a quail, although we are getting rid of the quail. Barley Celia, Nicola, I had the same trouble till I started growing butternut squash up a trellis with slugs and snails. Yeah, slugs and snails are always a problem, aren't they? And Anna Jones says, I thought it was that as well, Jenny, that Barbara butternut squash. So interesting. I'm pretty certain it is a butternut squash. But I will look into Barbara and just double check that. If it is, great, fantastic. I'll try and keep some seeds from it as well, because I'm really impressed with how big and how well it's grown. Considering I haven't really looked after it, it's just popped up and I've left it. I don't think I've even watered it, to be honest. Making sure I'm hydrated as always. I thought about getting rabbits for meat and manure, but I'm so far under, I don't need any extra responsibility. I know the feeling. I know that feeling. One day when we get much more land, and then perhaps we can look into more animals. But I think at the moment, chickens, quail, dog is enough, and even a quail, we as I said, we're getting rid of them because we're just not giving them a life that we are happy giving them. So we've got about 20 minutes left. If you do want to call in, 07307 135 174, or if you want to zap in, I've just realised I haven't actually, the conversation has gone so quick tonight. I haven't added the link if anybody does want to zap in. What was the other thing I was going to say? Next week, gluts. What are you doing with your gluts? And if you can share some recipes, fantastic. I meant to say this before Digwell left, so I have to message him later and let him know that this week's or next week's subject is about gluts. On the podcast on Monday, we're talking about my plans for overwinter projects. I've sort of discussed it, but you'll hear more in more detail. Got a video coming out as well, of sort of getting back into making videos again, finding the time. I found getting up early in the morning and editing them in the morning works quite nicely. But I really want to make more videos. I want to build the YouTube channel up, build the Facebook channel up, build the podcast. I mean, the podcast is going great, I've got to say. Absolutely fantastic listeners on that. Really good numbers. And more importantly, the content is what I'm really happy with. I have dogs, cats, chickens, garden, orchard, house, lawn, never a dull moment, never have to wonder what to do. Indeed. This is why we want much bigger land. I don't think it'll ever happen though, because the price of land around here is, what is it, £1,000, £100,000 an acre around here, which is a lot of money. But I'd love to have like an orchard and some more animals, bigger growing space, etc. Idaho, same here. Chicks are hard workers. Check on them 3 to 4 times a day. Yeah. It's a joys of this life, isn't it? You know, I often talk about, we're growing our own food here in Littlehampton, and we're trying to grow our food so that we don't have to buy food from a supermarket. But it's hard. It's hard work, and I love every minute of it. Don't get me wrong. It is hard work, especially working full time and everything else that keeps us occupied and busy, keeping the wife happy, etc. But when you get gluts like we're going to talk about next week, it makes it so worthwhile. And our food is just delicious. Brian says, I never wonder what to do, just how to do it. LOL. Yeah, I often find myself not so much thinking, what do I need to do? Thinking about, where do I start? Because there's always something that to do. So much to do. Let's say 2 allotments, the garden, dog, wife, work. List goes on and on. And when I was furloughed, I was the happiest I've ever been, because I just spent my entire time gardening. Nicholas says Southwest Wales, Ireland and Scotland for land that is cheaper. Yeah, I know. But that means moving away from my family and my friends. And I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, in all honesty. It's one of those, it's that conundrum. I could move away and have more land, but family and friends. Belly said, Richard, I always wanted more land, but since I gave one of my 2 allotments up, I'm enjoying myself more. Have to remember, we all get older. LOL. See, if I had land, that much land, it would be more, I'd grow my own food, but I wouldn't have any allotments, so everything would just be there, and I would try and start it off small and set it up so it almost looks after itself, like an orchard. Once it's established, bit of pruning once a year and harvesting doesn't really need much work in theory. I'm probably going to get told I'm wrong on that now I've said that. TurboStream, in Birmingham, they want to build on every square inch if they can get away with it. It's the same here. It's the same here, like say 100 grand an acre. And that's for land that is scrubland. If it's got a building on it, I mean, I think our house is valued at over 400,000 at the moment, and it's just a 3-bedroom house with a reasonable sized garden. It's ridiculous how expensive things are. It's just hard with one leg, says Brian, deciding what to do. I can imagine, buddy. I can imagine, buddy. But you do it. You do it. And, when people come to me and say, oh, they can't garden because of this or that, that's an example of what can be done if you put your mind to it. Just have to think outside the box. There was I always remember reading, or was it on a TV program, a person who gardened, had an allotment, who was blind. And what he would do, he set his allotment up, he would kick along the side of a beds and count how many steps, and he knew where he was on his allotment. Little things like that, I find absolutely amazing how people get over hardships to do the thing that they are passionate about. What excuse have we got? Here's me sitting that time, etc., hard work, etc., but it's worth it. Right, guys, 12 minutes to go. So let's recap on what many of us are going to be doing with this extra day off work, especially tomorrow. From the sounds of it, a lot of us are going to be more looking at what we're harvesting and holding on to harvesting our crops and making the most of that, but looking forward and seeing what we can do for next year, sitting down with a notepad and paper. Absolutely, definitely is something I'm certainly doing. Weeding, watering, although weeding and watering are less so at the moment because everything is just starting to look after itself again. Lisa from Not Just Green Fingers UK blog. I agree, RE, family and friends. I would love a small holding, but I don't want to leave my family and friends, so I make the best of what I have. I use my allotment. Yeah, this is exact thing. Amanda and I have discussed this many times. We know we could sell our house, move up north, and buy somewhere outright and live mortgage free, but I couldn't do it. I genuinely could not do it. Couldn't leave my family and friends around. Couldn't do it. I just could not do it as much as I want to. I know it's hard to believe, and it took me a while to wrap my mind around this, but some people do not like or want to grow food or flowers. I just don't want them to tell me that I shouldn't be growing. I agree with that. If everybody was the same, the world would be a boring place. So I totally agree. Some people don't like growing. That's fine. That's their choice, their loss. But they can't tell us what to do at the same point. Cannot tell us what to do at the same point. Adrian says, I'm trying to recover. I have cold feet and numbness on the feet, and it hurts to walk. You okay, buddy? I know you were a bit ill last week as well. Have I missed something, or just you okay, buddy? Are you okay, Adrian? Richard, just dawned on me and the wife are away on holiday next week. We'll miss 2 shows. We'll miss the chat, but first holiday in years. Well, we're going to miss you as well, Ballycillian, but you're on holiday. You make the most of it. When you come back, we want to hear all about it. And whereabouts are you going? Are you going to see any vegetable plots where you're out and about? And if so, please take some photos and share them with us for when you come back. Love to see that. Absolutely would. I can't remember, when did I last go on holiday? Oh, must be long time ago. I've actually got a couple of weeks off work coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. But we will still be going live during that time, still be doing the podcasts. Although I've got to admit, this live show isn't really what I would call work. It's so easy to just sit here and chat to you guys, and you guys make it easy. Kerry, sorry I left, my phone died. No problem. Lovely to see you back. Excuse me. Turbo Stream says, have a good holiday, Bally. We all need to change the scenery from time to time. Adrian says, I blooded my urine last week and tested, and they said they're okay, but it's still there. Hope you're okay, buddy. Please do take it easy and look after yourself. Bally says Spain, but always visit foreign garden centres. I'm exactly the same. I've always got to visit garden centres and have a look at allotments. The best garden centre I went to was in St. Lucia. I actually went to a botanical garden in St. Lucia. We swam in their spas in this beautiful botanical gardens. Absolutely loved it. Went into the hardware shop and brought a machete, which still I brought back with me from on the plane. Still lives up in my toolbox in my room. Fantastic to get these sort of mementos, as I call them. Timer Stream says, keep smiling, Adrian. Jenny says, hope you're okay, Adrian. Look after yourself. Adrian says, I am mortgage free, so please I don't have to pay that, but other demands on time and money. Indeed, I know how you feel there. Brian says, I'm looking forward to my wife and daughter going on holiday next year. Woohoo, peace and quiet. Yeah, I know how you feel there. Last year, my wife went up. We were both meant to go to Scotland up to visit her parents, and because we got Roxy, I didn't feel I could go, and I had the house to myself for a week, and it was rather nice, really, really nice. Peace and quiet, just me and the dog and the chickens and the quail. Did our own thing and had that enjoyable. Turbo Stream says, I might have a wander around the garden centre on Wednesday after I meet up with my cousin. Might be a few bargains to be had. The garden centres are a little bit behind the rest, but as kids go back to school, you can imagine that there will be a lot more offers going on in the garden centres. Like I say, they want to get rid of their old stock, bring in the Christmas stock. They need space for that. Kate says, I hope you're okay, Adrian. And Adrian says, thanks to Richard, Jenny, and Tower Stream and everybody else. Not a problem. 5 minutes, just over 5 minutes to go till the end of this show. It's been a good one, actually. It's been great chatting as always. I've really enjoyed these conversations that we are never know where they're going to go. I'd like the fact that we started off with this one subject and we've ended up talking about peat-based compost as well, which is always interesting. So next week I want to talk about glut, so get your glut recipes coming in. If I think it was Kerry who's making the tomato soup, let us know how you get on with your tomato soup as well. Brian sums it up nicely. Plenty of common sense in the chat. Exactly. And I always say with this conversation, there's no right and wrong. It's everybody's different opinions. We can all be friendly and express everyone's different opinions and stick with that. And that's what I like about this group, is that we can do that. We certainly can do that. What Kerry's asking, what can I do with a glut of cucumbers? LOL. Good question. We will discuss that next week. But what I would recommend, my first thought, is pickled cucumbers. So basically gherkins. And they store really well. If you like gherkins or you like pickles, tasty burgers. I do that quite often with cucumbers. So that's my first thought with your thing. Runner bean curries here so much. Runner beans or French beans as well go so well in curries. They seem to really do take on a lot of that flavour. Anna says it's been a great chat. Lots of good topics indeed. Cucumber sorbet once, it wasn't nice. Indeed. Cucumber sorbet wasn't nice. What about cucumber and mint sorbet? Could that work? Cucumber and mint. The best conversations are not scripted. That's what makes this channel so fun. Yeah, it is. We never have a script. I try and have a rough idea of what points I'm going to talk about, but we never have a script. Kerry says, I've done that. Pickled loads. Oh, what else can you do then, Kerry? You know, we're going to be talking about it next week. So come back next week while we can think more about it. But there. Hargrave Gas says, my chickens love surplus chickens. Goes on surplus cucumbers, that should say. Yeah, my chickens love surplus courgettes as well. Oh, while I remember, Kate says, I've been making the most of a local library recently, gardening books, but also has a thing called Libby where you can borrow digital garden magazines too for free. There we go. I've heard about this. I have heard about this, but I've never looked into it. If you do buy magazines, don't really want to buy them. Get them from Libby. Ian McGorgan, have I pronounced your surname wrong? McGorgan, Cragon, isn't it? Best wishes, Adrian. I have blood in my urine. Hope the doctors get you sorted. Turbo Stream, enjoy your extra day if you have one. It's a normal Monday for the rest of us. All right, lucky you. I will come back next week to find out. Yes, I'm going to get my thinking cap on and think about cucumbers and what we can do with them. I do like pickling my cucumbers, I will say that. Sandwiches, of course, they don't freeze very well generally, cucumbers. But I'm trying to think, gazpacho soup, does that use cucumbers? I can't remember. Cool cucumber soup. That's an idea. Cool cucumber soup. It's a cold soup, but that might be something you can use cucumbers in as well. But yeah, we'll make a note of that in just a second to do a bit of homework on that. But yeah, your gluts, courgette gluts, tomato gluts, cucumber gluts, onion gluts, anything like that. I want to know what you're going to do with them. That's next week, 6 o'clock on this same veg time, same veg place, same veg channel. You know the saying as it goes, and I'm just sending this out for a while. I've got a hydrator. We'll give that a go. Yeah, I wonder if dehydrated cucumbers will work as well. Idaho says, I've made a cold cucumber soup. It is good. And Jenny says, cucumber and bean salad is nice. Beetroot gluts, says Turbo Stream. That's another good one we can think about. Anyway, I'm going to start setting up to close this show because it is coming up to 7:30. It's as always, it's been great having this chat. As I say, didn't know where the conversation was going to go. Anybody has any questions, save them for next week as well. We never know where the conversation's going to go, and everyone joins in and helps each other out, and that's what I love about doing this. So get that ready for next week as well. Please do share your pictures. Please do share any videos that you may have. If you're cooking something up and want to shoot a video for us to play in, please do that and send that to us as well. Always goes down well cooking videos. Ian says runner bean glut as well for those that have lots of runner beans. So back again next time, same veg place. Until then, please take care and have some fun in your garden. Enjoy your extra day tomorrow if you've got the day off. If you haven't got the day off, make the most of whatever you're doing tomorrow. Till next time, please take care.